My name is Ryan, I'm 31 years old, and my brother slept with my girlfriend in my apartment. Then they laughed, threw me out, and took everything. Before I tell you how I exposed the truth that no one saw coming, the truth that sent him to prison for 12 years, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. It really helps to know I'm not alone in this. To understand how a life can unravel so completely, so quickly, you have to understand the foundation it was built on. My foundation was my family, and it was cracked from the beginning. My older brother, Sam, is 34. In our quiet, suburban home, he wasn't just a son, he was the sun, and the rest of us were just planets orbiting him, lucky to catch his light. If you've ever been the other planet, the one further out in the cold, you know the feeling. It's not a loud, dramatic abuse. It's a quiet, constant hum of not enough that becomes the soundtrack to your life. Our family was textbook middle class. Dad was a construction foreman, his hands calloused and his patience thin after a long day. Mom was a secretary at an elementary school, skilled in organization and quiet disappointment. They were good people, I think, but they had a blind spot the size of a billboard, and its name was Sam. They managed to scrape together every spare dollar to put him through a prestigious business school. For me, when it came time for college, it was a trip to the bank for student loan applications. Your brother needs the support more than you do, Ryan, Mom would say, patting my arm. You've always been so independent. What I heard, clear as a bell, was, we're betting on Sam. You're on your own. This dynamic wasn't new. It was etched into our childhood. I remember when I was 9, my Uncle Mike, my mom's cool younger brother, gave me a PlayStation for my birthday right before he moved overseas. He was the only adult who saw me, the quiet kid who liked to draw instead of play football. That console wasn't just a toy, it was a connection to him, the nicest thing I had ever owned. I treasured it. For 3 solid months, I did every chore imaginable, mowing, taking out the trash, washing the car, to save up $27 for a racing game I'd seen at the store. The day I bought it, I felt like a king. A week later, I came home from school to find Sam in the living room with 3 of his jock friends. The air was thick with the sickly sweet smell of energy drinks. My racing game was on the screen, and my controller was in Sam's hands. He was showing off, laughing, when he gestured wildly and the can of sticky, green liquid in his other hand went flying, dousing the console in a fizzy waterfall. There was a pop, a sizzle, and then silence. The screen went black. It was already glitchy anyway, Sam said with a shrug, not even looking at me. My 9-year-old world crumbled. Tears streamed down my face, hot with injustice. My dad walked in, saw me crying, and his face hardened. Man up, Ryan, he grunted. It's a machine. My mom was softer, but her words cut just as deep. Oh, honey, don't be so materialistic. It's just a thing. But the final twist of the knife came the next month. It was Sam's birthday, and he wanted a new cell phone. My parents sat me down at the kitchen table. They were short on cash, they explained. Sam needed this phone for school, for his social life, for his future. They asked me to contribute my birthday money, the $50 Grandma had sent me. I stared at them, speechless. They had just watched him destroy my most prized possession without a single consequence, and now they were asking me to reward him. I pushed the crumpled bills across the table without a word. Sam pocketed the cash, didn't even say thanks, and walked out. It was his due. It was always his due. It happened again when I was 13. I spent that entire summer under the blistering sun, mowing what felt like every lawn in our zip code. The smell of cut grass and gasoline still brings me back to that feeling of exhaustion and purpose. By August, I had enough money to buy a silver Mongoose BMX bike. It was my freedom. It was my sweat and hard work made real. It was mine. For exactly 2 days. Sam needed to impress a girl named Tiffany. He didn't ask, he just took the bike. He was gone with it for a week. When he finally rolled it back into the garage, my heart sank. The rims were bent into warped ovals, and there was a spiderweb crack running through the frame near the handlebars. It was ruined. I confronted him, my voice shaking with a rage I was too young to control. He just laughed. "Chill out, dude. It's a bike." I pleaded my case to my dad, showing him the cracked frame. He sighed, annoyed at the interruption to his football game. "Things get broken, Ryan. That's life. Stop being so materialistic." Then came the line that defined my entire youth: "Your brother has bigger ambitions than you. He's under more pressure to succeed. The least you can do is cut him some slack." There it was again. The translation was always the same: Sam's life is the main event. Yours is a sideshow. His needs are necessities. Yours are trivialities. High school was just a bigger stage for the same play. I finally got my first real girlfriend, Amber. She was different. She had streaks of blue in her black hair, wore combat boots, and could draw things that looked like they were torn from a beautiful nightmare. She liked my art. She liked me. She didn't care that I wasn't the star of the track team or the class president. I brought her home for a family dinner, my stomach churning with a mix of pride and anxiety. The whole night, I watched Sam watch her. It was a look I'd seen him give other things he wanted: my PlayStation, my bike. A look of assessment, of acquisition. A predator sizing up its prey. 3 weeks later, I was supposed to meet Amber at the movies. She never showed. I drove by her house, then past the park. On a hunch, I drove down the secluded lovers' lane by the reservoir. And there was Sam's car. I saw their silhouettes in the front seat. I didn't even have to get closer. I just knew. When I confronted him the next day, the smirk on his face was unbearable. "She wasn't that into you anyway, bro," he said, leaning against his locker. "Honestly, I was doing you a favor. You were in over your head." When I told my parents, hoping for a shred of sympathy, they turned it on me. "Well, Ryan," my mom said gently, "maybe you need to learn from your brother how to keep a girl interested." My own father suggested that Amber probably wanted a guy with more drive. It was insane. It was my reality. So after college, I ran. Not far, just 40 miles away, but it felt like a different country. I got a junior graphic designer position at a marketing agency. The salary was barely enough to cover my rent and student loan payments. $43,000 a year felt like a fortune and nothing at all at once. I found a small one-bedroom apartment in a complex called West Side Heights. It had beige walls, a faint smell of old paint, and a view of a parking lot, but it was my sanctuary. It was the only space on earth that was 100% mine, a place Sam couldn't just waltz into. I hung my own artwork, collected vintage movie posters, and for the first time, I felt like I could breathe. My relationship with my family settled into a cold, predictable rhythm: birthdays, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Each visit was a repeat performance of the Sam show. He'd hold court, bragging about his 6-figure salary as an investment advisor at Jackson Financial Services, his promotions, his bonuses. My parents would hang on every word, their faces glowing with pride. And I would sit there, invisible, just a piece of furniture in the background of his glorious life. Then, my life changed. Her name was Natalie. I met her at a quirky coffee shop called The Daily Grind, which let local artists display their work. I had a series of urban landscape illustrations hanging on the exposed brick wall. I saw her from across the room, studying one of them with a little tilt of her head, a half-smile playing on her lips. She had these incredible hazel eyes that seemed to shift from green to brown depending on the light, and when she laughed, it was a warm, genuine sound that made you want to laugh too. She noticed me watching her and smiled. "Did you do these?" she asked, gesturing to my work. I nodded, suddenly nervous. "They're really good," she said, her gaze returning to a drawing of a rain-slicked city street at dusk. "The perspective on this one, it makes me feel like I'm actually standing there." No one had ever talked about my art like that before. We started talking and didn't stop for 3 hours. She was a paralegal at a downtown law firm, Howard and Mitchell Law. She was smart, ambitious, and funny. For the first time, I felt like someone was seeing me for who I was, not for who I wasn't. Natalie celebrated the parts of me my family had always criticized. "You're sensitive in a good way, Ryan," she'd say, tracing the lines on my palm. "You notice the little things. That's why your art is so powerful." We fell in love, hard and fast. After a year, we moved in together, into a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in a complex called Parkview Commons. It was our place, filled with our hopes. She was my biggest champion, pushing me to build a freelance business on the side. "Your salary at the agency is a safety net, she'd say, but your art is your future." Under her encouragement, my freelance work took off. I was getting clients, building a reputation, saving money. We started talking about the future, about buying a place of our own. We even had a specific development in mind, the Oak Ridge condos, a new complex with beautiful balconies and a park nearby. It was our dream. My life finally felt real, solid, and completely mine. Sam couldn't touch this. The day it all burned down started with good intentions. It was a Tuesday in October. Natalie and I had been bickering about money, nothing serious, just the usual couple stuff. I wanted to be aggressive with saving for a down payment on an Oak Ridge condo. She wanted to renovate the apartment kitchen. I felt like we were getting disconnected, so I decided to surprise her. I left work at 3 p.m., a thing I had never done before, feeling a thrill of rebellion. I went to the fancy Italian market and bought ingredients for her favorite pesto pasta, fresh basil, expensive pine nuts, a block of real Parmigiano Reggiano. I was going to cook for her, romance her, and remind us of what we had. I turned the key in our apartment door, a smile on my face. The smile died instantly. The air in the apartment felt wrong, heavy. The first thing I saw were 2 water glasses on the coffee table, one with a faint smudge of lipstick that wasn't Natalie's usual shade. Then my eyes fell to the floor by the door. There was a pair of men's shoes next to our shoe rack. They weren't mine. They were gleaming leather loafers, the kind that cost more than my monthly car payment. My heart started a frantic, sick rhythm against my ribs. And then I heard it. A sound from our bedroom. It was Natalie's laugh, but it was a throaty, intimate sound I hadn't heard in a long time. It was followed by a man's low chuckle, a voice that was woven into the very fabric of my DNA. A voice I would know anywhere. It was Sam. The world went into slow motion. My grocery bag slipped from my fingers, and a carton of eggs crashed to the floor, the sound unnaturally loud in the sudden silence that followed. I walked down the hallway like a man walking to his own execution. Each step was leaden. My blood felt like ice water in my veins. I reached the bedroom doorway and just stood there, my mind refusing to assemble the scene in front of me into a coherent reality. Sam was sprawled on our bed, wearing his tailored suit pants and a half-unbuttoned dress shirt. In his hand was the $90 bottle of sparkling cider I had bought for our upcoming anniversary. He was drinking it straight from the bottle. Natalie was next to him, wearing nothing but her underwear and one of my old t-shirts. Her makeup was smudged around her eyes, and her hair was a mess in that very specific, post-intimacy way. They both looked towards the door. Sam's face registered no shock, no guilt. Just a slow, smug smile that spread across his lips like a poison. It was the smile of a predator that had just cornered its prey. The smile that had haunted my entire life. "Well, look who's home early," he said, his voice casual as he took another swig of my anniversary cider. "The worker bee returns to the hive." Natalie's eyes widened for a fraction of a second, a flicker of panic. But then it was gone, replaced by a mask of cold, hard contempt I had never seen before. It was like looking at a stranger. "You weren't supposed to be home until 6, she said, her tone sharp, accusatory. As if I was the one who had broken the rules. As if my presence was an inconvenience to them. Sam swung his legs off the bed and sauntered over to me. He draped a heavy arm over my shoulders, a grotesque parody of brotherly affection. His expensive Rolex, the one he got as a bonus for a deal I'm sure involved someone's ruined retirement, dug into my collarbone. "Ryan, buddy, don't look so shocked," he said, his voice a low, conspiratorial murmur. "We're actually doing you a favor here." My own voice felt like it was trapped behind a wall of glass. I managed to force out 2 words. "A favor?" My hands were shaking uncontrollably, so I jammed them in my pockets. "Yeah, man," he said, leaning in closer. His breath smelled of mint and arrogance. "Natalie needs someone who can actually provide for her. Someone with a real future. Not some guy who's still playing artist at 31. He glanced back at Natalie, who was now watching us with a detached, cruel curiosity. He lowered his voice, just for me, but loud enough for her to hear the rumble. "Face it. You've always been second best. Nat needs a real man, not whatever the hell you are. Tonight, I'll show her what she's been missing." The words were a physical blow, but what truly shattered me was what happened next. Natalie laughed. It wasn't her beautiful, infectious laugh. It was a hollow, mocking sound that echoed the cruelty in Sam's eyes. Then, with a chilling deliberation, she walked to the closet, our closet, and began pulling my clothes off the hangers, tossing them onto the floor in a heap. "I have been settling for so long," she said, her voice laced with a venom I never knew she possessed. My favorite flannel shirt, my work clothes, everything landed in a pile of disrespect. She picked up my leather-bound design portfolio, the one that held all my best freelance work, my dreams. She looked me right in the eye and threw it onto the pile of clothes. "Your brother makes 3 times your salary and he doesn't whine about artistic integrity when I say I want nice things." She moved to the nightstand, picked up the framed photo of us from our trip to the coast, the one where we were both laughing, and she deliberately let it slip from her fingers. The sound of the glass cracking on the hardwood floor was like a gunshot in my heart. 2 years of my life, she said, kicking at the broken frame with her bare foot. Wasted on a guy who's too scared to even ask his boss for a promotion. Meanwhile, Sam just closed a deal for his company worth more than you'll make in the next 5 years. He's a winner, Ryan. What are you? I couldn't answer. I couldn't move. I just stood there, in the doorway of my own bedroom, watching the 2 most important people in my life dismantle my past and murder my future. Sam walked over to her, wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, and kissed her neck, all while staring directly at me, a triumphant glint in his eyes. He was branding her as his, making sure I witnessed the finality of my defeat. "Get your stuff and go, little brother," Sam said, his voice bored, like he was swatting away a fly. "We've got plans for this apartment that don't include you." The next few minutes are a blur of pure, dissociative shock. I remember moving on autopilot, grabbing my backpack from the hall closet. My hands were clumsy, fumbling. I stuffed in some clothes from the pile on the floor, my laptop, and my external hard drive, which thankfully was on my desk. On my way out, I grabbed a small wooden box from the bookshelf. It held a few old family photos. I don't know why I took it. I left behind the couch we picked out together, the bookshelf I built by hand, the art on the walls, 2 years of a shared life. As I walked out the door, it started to rain. A fitting, pathetic fallacy. I walked for what felt like miles, the rain soaking through my jacket, with no destination in mind. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a text from Sam. "Left some of your crap in the hallway. Anything still there tomorrow goes in the dumpster. Thanks for breaking in Natalie for me. You were always good at getting my leftovers." I ended up on the doorstep of my friend, Dave. His place was a cramped studio apartment that always smelled faintly of pizza, but it felt like a sanctuary. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and just stepped aside to let me in. He didn't press for details. He just cleared some video game cases off his lumpy couch, handed me a cold soda, and said, "Whatever it is, man, you're safe here." Later that night, after 3 sodas and a long, heavy silence, the whole story came pouring out of me in a torrent of broken sentences. Dave just listened, his expression growing darker with every detail. He didn't offer empty platitudes or silver linings. He just said, "That's messed up, and your brother isn't just a jerk, he's a sociopath." It was exactly what I needed. Simple, unvarnished validation. The first week was a waking nightmare. I slept on Dave's couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene in the bedroom over and over. I barely ate. I lost weight I couldn't afford to lose. My boss at the agency, a decent guy named Mr. Henderson, called me into his office. He looked concerned. "Ryan, is everything okay? Your work on the Peterson account was sloppy." "That's not like you." I mumbled something about personal issues, and he let it go, but with a warning look. I was falling apart, and the shrapnel was hitting every part of my life. Then, a week after I'd been kicked out, Dave sat down next to me on the couch, a grim look on his face. "You probably shouldn't look at this," he said, holding out his phone. "But you need to know what they're doing." It was Natalie's Instagram. The picture was of her and Sam, sitting at a corner table at La Vina, the ridiculously expensive Italian restaurant I had saved for 3 months to take her to for our 2nd anniversary. She was laughing, holding up a glass of wine. On her wrist was a delicate silver watch, the exact one I had been saving up to buy her for Christmas. But it was the caption that felt like a punch to the gut. It read, "Upgraded to the better brother. A woman should never have to settle for less than she's worth. #leveling up #realman." I scrolled through the comments, my hands shaking. Mutual friends were asking what happened. Natalie's replies were a masterclass in public assassination. "Just realized I deserve a man who can provide for me, not a boy with a hobby." Some men build empires, others just draw pictures of them. Then I saw Sam's comment, "Thanks for the hand-me-down, bro." And her reply to him, with a winking emoji, hardly used and easily upgraded. They were performing my humiliation for an audience, turning my heartbreak into their entertainment. The calls started coming in. Friends, coworkers. "Dude, what happened with you and Natalie?" I didn't know what to say. The truth felt too insane, too pathetic. My brother, the golden child, stole my girlfriend and my apartment, and my parents think it's my fault. It sounded like a bad soap opera plot. Then, the call I was dreading came. My mother. Her voice was cheerful, completely oblivious to the wreckage of my life. "Ryan, honey. We're having a family dinner on Sunday. Your presence is expected." "Mom, I can't," I said, my voice flat. "Don't be silly. This is important. Family sticks together, no matter what. Sam said you two had a little disagreement, but it's time to be adults about it." A disagreement. The word was so absurd it was almost funny. A red-hot rage, an emotion I had been suppressing for weeks, finally boiled over. "A disagreement?" I snapped, my voice cracking. "Mom, he slept with Natalie. In our bed. In our apartment. While we were still together. He threw me out of my own home." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I waited for the shock, the outrage on my behalf. A mother's protection. It never came. "Well," she said finally, her voice laced with a gentle, maddening logic, "these things happen, Ryan. Maybe Natalie just realized that she and Sam have more in common. They're both so ambitious. You'll find someone, you know, more on your level eventually." I went to the dinner. I don't know why. Maybe I was a glutton for punishment. Maybe I had to see the bottom, to know for sure that there was nothing left to salvage. The scene was surreal. My mom fussed over Sam, my dad hung on his every word about the stock market, and Natalie sat next to him, wearing a new dress and a diamond necklace that probably cost more than my car. She was playing the part of the perfect, successful girlfriend. They were a power couple. I was the family ghost at the table. Halfway through the pot roast, my mom clapped her hands together. "We have some wonderful news," she announced, beaming at Sam and Natalie. "They're moving into the Oak Ridge condos." The fork slipped from my hand and clattered onto the plate. Oak Ridge. Our dream place. The place I had a brochure for tacked to my bulletin board. The place where I had imagined proposing to Natalie on the balcony. Sam saw the look on my face and twisted the knife. "Got a sweet deal on it, too," he said, that lazy, arrogant smirk never leaving his face. "The corner unit with the big balcony. You know, the one you had circled in that brochure you left at the apartment." My mother placed her hand on my shoulder, her nails digging in slightly. "A warning. Isn't it wonderful, Ryan? Your brother is finally settling down with a quality woman. You should try to be happy for him instead of being so jealous all the time." I looked across the table at my dad, a silent plea for help, for some acknowledgement of the sheer cruelty of the situation. He just shook his head slowly, a look of profound disappointment on his face. "Your brother works hard for what he wants, Ryan. Maybe you should take some notes." After the dinner from hell, I couldn't face the long drive back to Dave's couch just yet. I told them I needed to use the restroom, but instead, I retreated into my dad's small home office, the one place in the house that had always been quiet. I just needed a minute to stop my hands from shaking. I sank into his old, worn leather chair and bumped the desk mouse. The computer screen flickered to life. His email was open. He was always forgetting to log out, a habit I'd warned him about 1,000,000 times. I was about to get up and leave when a subject line from a few weeks back caught my eye. It was from Sam. "Compliance Review Q3, Advisory Accounts." Something about the sterile corporate language, after the raw emotion of the evening, made me pause. On a dark impulse, I clicked it. It was a chain between Sam and a woman named Linda Blackwell from his company's compliance department. She was asking pointed questions about documentation for a few accounts. Sam's replies were dismissive, arrogant even. It felt off. I started scrolling through my dad's inbox. He never deleted anything. It was a digital archive of our family's life. I found another email thread where Sam had asked Dad to print some documents for him because his office printer was supposedly down. Attached were several client account statements. I'm a graphic designer. My entire career is built on noticing tiny details, alignment, kerning, font consistency. And as I scanned the PDFs, my designers, I screamed that something was wrong. The margins on page 2 were slightly different from page 1. The font size in the summary table was 11.5 point, while the rest of the document was 12 point. Small things. Things a 75-year-old client would never notice. But they were red flags to me. My heart started to beat faster. I kept digging, a man possessed. And then I found it. The smoking gun. An email Sam had sent to his own work address, but had accidentally CC'd my dad on. The subject was blank. There were 2 attachments. WilliamsACCT_official.pdf and WilliamsACCT_actual.pdf. With trembling hands, I opened them side by side on the screen. Same client name, Harold Williams. Same account number. Same date. But the balances were wildly different. The official statement, the one with the formatting errors, showed a healthy balance of $478,952. The actual statement showed $116,283. A difference of over $360,000. It felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. For the next hour, I sat there in the dark, the only light coming from the monitor, and I pieced together Sam's scheme. He was targeting his elderly, wealthiest clients, people who trusted him implicitly. He was generating fake, doctored statements to show them their portfolios were thriving, while he was systematically draining their actual accounts with a series of phony management fees, rebalancing transfers, and special client opportunity withdrawals. He was covering his tracks with forged authorization forms and deliberately confusing transaction histories. The compliance department was sniffing around, but he was staying one step ahead. Ryan? I nearly jumped out of my skin. Natalie was standing in the doorway, silhouetted by the hall light. Her arms were crossed, her expression unreadable. Just needed some space, I mumbled, frantically closing the email tabs. She walked into the room, her eyes scanning the computer, then me. She gave me a look of pure pity that was more insulting than any anger could have been. You know, this is why we didn't work out. You're always hiding, always needing space instead of facing reality. She came closer, her voice dropping to a low, condescending whisper. Sam takes what he wants. That's why he's successful. And you're, well, you. She turned and walked away, but not before I heard her mutter under her breath, pathetic. That single word was like a key turning in a lock. The grief, the hurt, the confusion, it all receded, replaced by a singular, ice-cold clarity. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about Harold Williams. It was about every other name on those statements. A few days later, my new resolve was tested and hardened. I got an unexpected visitor at Dave's apartment. It was a woman named Jessica. She introduced herself as a fellow paralegal from Natalie's firm. She was wringing her hands, clearly distressed. I shouldn't be here, she started, but I can't live with it. You deserve to know the truth. She told me that Sam and Natalie hadn't just hooked up. They had been having a full-blown affair for 7 months. All those late nights Natalie was supposedly working on a big case, she was with Sam. Those networking events were dates with my brother. She used to brag about it at the office, Jessica said, looking disgusted. She called you her convenient boyfriend, a stepping stone. She said you were sweet, but that you lacked ambition. She was just waiting for Sam to be ready to go public. Then she told me something that made my blood run cold. Last week, Natalie convinced my own grandmother to move her retirement account to be managed by Sam. My grandma has dementia. She trusts Natalie. She signed the papers without even understanding them. That was it. The final piece. The moment my mission became crystal clear. This wasn't revenge. This was a rescue operation. The following Saturday, I went back to my parents' house. I used the excuse that I needed to find my old tax documents for a new apartment application. I let myself in with the key they never asked for back. The house was quiet. Sam was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, talking on his phone, his voice echoing in the empty house. He was too engrossed to hear me. It's the easiest con in the world, he was saying, laughing into the phone. These old people, they trust you. They don't even check their statements properly. By the time anyone notices the money is gone, I'll be sipping a cocktail in the Caymans. He paused, listening. Nah, the firm is clueless. Linda in compliance is getting a little close for comfort, but I've got one more big transfer scheduled for next week. $500,000. Then I'm ghost. The offshore accounts are all set up. Another pause. Natalie? Oh, she's just another trophy. She's hot, but high maintenance as hell. Keeps talking about a marriage, a future, a college fund for a kid we don't even have, like I'm actually going to stick around for that. He let out a harsh laugh. And my little brother? That pathetic loser. It's classic Ryan. Always getting my leftovers. It's been that way since we were kids. Mom and Dad still think he's a disappointment, you know? Always asking why he can't be more like me. It's hilarious. I backed out of the house without making a sound, my heart hammering against my ribs, not with fear or anger, but with a chilling sense of purpose. I drove down the street, parked, and waited. An hour later, Sam's BMW pulled out of the driveway. He was off to his weekend tennis game. I went back inside. This time, I had a high-capacity USB drive. I went straight to my dad's office and began a meticulous operation. I copied every single email, every fraudulent report, every doctored statement. I took photos of documents with my phone, capturing names, dates, and amounts. While I was working, I saw something that stopped me cold. A folder on the desktop labeled Parents' Portfolio. On a hunch, I opened it. There it was. A statement showing a balance of $340,000, their entire life savings, their retirement, invested in the very same fraudulent special client portfolio Sam was using to funnel money from his victims. He wasn't just a thief. He was a monster who would devour his own family to feed his greed. That night, I didn't get drunk. I got organized. Dave watched me, a worried look on his face, as I sat at his small kitchen table, my new laptop glowing. "Dude, are you sure about this?" he asked. "This is like federal crime serious." "He's stealing from elderly people with dementia, Dave," I said without looking up from the screen. "He stole from our parents. He's been stealing from me my entire life. Someone has to stop him." It took me 2 weeks of sleepless nights. I approached it like a design project. I bought a new, untraceable laptop with cash. I created a secure, anonymous email address at the public library 2 towns over, using their Wi-Fi and a VPN. I didn't just collect the data, I curated it. I created spreadsheets that tracked every single fraudulent transaction, highlighting the pattern. I created a timeline that cross-referenced Sam's major personal purchases, the Rolex, the down payment on the condo, a luxury vacation to Bali, with the dates of his largest illegal withdrawals. I even found examples of forged signatures where he hadn't even tried to make them look authentic. The total amount I could definitively trace was over $780,000. It wasn't a billion-dollar heist, but it was a lifetime of savings for dozens of people. Then came the distribution strategy. I created 3 separate, anonymous packages, each with a slightly different focus, to make it look like the tips were coming from multiple, unconnected sources. Package 1 was for Linda Blackwell in compliance. It contained only the internal documents, client statements, transaction records, organized to make the pattern undeniable. It was evidence she could verify herself. Package 2 went to the State Financial Regulatory Board. It focused on the victims, including evidence of the forged signatures and the timeline linking Sam's lifestyle to his clients' losses. I included a heavily redacted mention of Jessica's grandmother. Package 3, the main event, went to the SEC's Enforcement Division. It contained everything. All the emails, all the spreadsheets, all the doctored statements versus the real ones. And I included the crown jewel, the emails where Sam discussed his plans to flee to a non-extradition country. I mailed the physical packages from different mailboxes in different towns and sent the digital files from my anonymous email. And then, the hardest part, I waited. 17 days later, it happened. I was in a coffee shop 60 miles from home, trying to feel normal, when a text from Dave lit up my phone. "Dude. Check the news. Right now." I typed the name of our local news station into my phone's browser. And there it was. The headline was stark: local financial advisor at Jackson Financial Services charged in elaborate, multi-million-dollar client fraud scheme. And below it, a picture of Sam. Not his polished corporate headshot, but a photo of him in his expensive suit, his hands cuffed behind his back, being led out of his gleaming office building by 2 FBI agents. The smugness was gone, replaced by a look of pure, slack-jawed shock. The article said the authorities had received a series of detailed, anonymous tips that had allowed them to move quickly and freeze all related accounts. Bail was set at $1 million. I stared at the photo, and I felt nothing. Not joy. Not satisfaction. Just a profound, hollow quiet. The weight I had been carrying on my shoulders my entire life, the weight of being less than, was just gone. The quiet didn't last long. My phone began to vibrate, a relentless buzz of incoming chaos. The first was a text from Natalie, a string of frantic, misspelled messages. "Did you do this?" They froze everything. All of Sam's accounts. The condo is gone. The bank just called me. My name was on the application. I could be in trouble. We need to talk now. I deleted the message without responding. Next, a call from my mom. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was panicked. "Ryan, this is a terrible, terrible misunderstanding. Your brother has been arrested. You need to come home immediately. A family supports each other in a crisis. You have to help him. We might need a lawyer." I texted her back one simple question: is it still a misunderstanding when he stole $2.3 million? I used a higher, more shocking number I saw in the news report. The 3 dots of her typing appeared and disappeared for a full minute. Her final reply was chilling: "How do you know that number? What did you do?" She didn't ask what Sam had done. She asked what I had done. My dad's text was blunt. "Sam's lawyer called. Sam says you took documents from my computer and framed him. If that's true, you have betrayed this family. Your brother could go to prison because of your jealousy." My reply was just as blunt. "Did he tell you he stole your entire retirement fund, too? Go online and check your investment statements. The real ones." For 3 hours, silence. Then, a new voicemail from my dad. His voice was completely different. It was broken. All the authority, the arrogance, was gone. It was the voice of an old, frightened man. "Ryan, you were right. I checked. The accounts are empty. Everything we saved for 30 years, it's all gone. Your mother, she's devastated. Please, son, please call us back." I didn't. Not yet. A week later, they found me. They showed up at Dave's apartment. My dad looked smaller, stooped. My mom's face was a mask of grief, her eyes red and swollen. She looked like she'd aged a decade. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice raspy. I let them in. They sat on the lumpy couch, looking lost and out of place. "The house is being seized," my dad said, his voice flat, staring at the floor. "It's part of the asset recovery for the victims. We have to be out in 30 days. We have nowhere to go. Sam's lawyer says he's trying to make a deal," my mom added, her voice a desperate whisper. "He's trying to claim you were the mastermind, that you manipulated him, that you framed him because you were jealous of him and Natalie." A sound escaped my throat. It was a laugh. A short, bitter, humorless bark. "And you believe that?" I asked, looking from one of them to the other. They exchanged a glance. "We don't know what to believe anymore," my dad admitted, his voice barely audible. I finally stood up, a lifetime of resentment coalescing into a moment of cold, hard truth. "He has been stealing from you for years," I said, my voice steady. "Not just your retirement. Remember that loan you co-signed for his first car that he defaulted on? The money that went missing from your anniversary vacation fund? The business trips to Vegas? That was all Sam. Stealing from you. And you never saw it because you never wanted to." My mom started to cry, but not her usual manipulative tears. These were real, broken sobs. "We need your help, Ryan," my dad said, the words visibly costing him his pride. "We have nowhere else to turn." I sat back and looked at them, really looked at them. "Remember when I was 16 and I got into that summer art program? The one that cost $1,200? You said you couldn't afford it. 2 weeks later, you bought Sam a $3,500 motorcycle because he needed transportation. They both flinched, looking away. You made choices, I said, my voice quiet but unyielding. Consistently, for my entire life. And now, you're facing the consequences of those choices. I walked to the door. I won't testify against him. The evidence I provided is enough. But I won't help him either. As for you, I'll help you find a temporary apartment and apply for victims' assistance funds. But I will not give you money, and I will not let you pretend that the last 30 years didn't happen. As they were leaving, my mom paused at the door. Natalie's been calling us constantly, she said. She's pregnant. She says it's Sam's. She delivered the line like a final, desperate trump card. A grandchild. Family. I just nodded. Of course she was. 2 days later, she showed up at my office. The transformation was stunning. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a simple maternity dress. Her makeup was subtle. She was playing the part of the repentant, single mother. Ryan, please, she began, her eyes instantly welling with tears. I made a terrible mistake. Sam is a monster. He lied to me about everything. Like you lied to me for 7 months? I replied, my voice calm. Her eyes widened in genuine shock. You knew? I found out later, I said. She put a hand on her stomach, a classic, theatrical gesture. I'm pregnant. I need help. Sam's assets are frozen. His parents are broke. You're the only one I can turn to. For the baby's sake. I looked at her, at the woman I had once loved so much I couldn't imagine a future without her. She was a stranger to me now. I took a sticky note from my desk and wrote an address on it. There's a women's resource center on 7th Street, I said, holding it out to her. They can help you with housing assistance and prenatal care. The legal aid office downtown can help you file for child support against Sam's future prison earnings, if he has any. She stared at the note, then at me, her face contorting in disbelief. That's it? A charity? That's all you're offering me after everything we had? After everything you threw away? I corrected her gently. You made your choice, Natalie. You chose the better brother, remember? The real man. How's that working out for you? Her face turned ugly, the mask of victimhood melting away to reveal the familiar sneer of contempt. You will regret this, she hissed. You'll end up alone and miserable, just like you've always been. I shrugged. Maybe. But I'd rather be alone and happy than with someone who sees love as a career move. As she stormed out, she flung a final parting shot over her shoulder. This baby is your nephew or niece. Don't you care about family? 6 months passed. My life was unrecognizable. I quit my job, took a leap of faith, and moved to a city 3 states away. I landed a job as a creative director at a booming tech startup. They doubled my old salary and gave me equity in the company. I moved into a beautiful downtown apartment with a balcony that overlooked the entire city. The legal system did its work. Sam was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for fraud, embezzlement, and financial elder abuse. With good behavior, he might be out in 8. My parents sold what little they had left and moved into a small senior apartment complex. We talk sometimes, on the phone. The conversations are cautious, strained, but for the first time in my life, they are honest. Natalie had the baby, a little boy. A court-ordered DNA test confirmed he was Sam's. She tried to get Sam to acknowledge paternity, but from prison, he claimed she cheated on him and the kid could be anyone's. She ended up moving back to her hometown to live with her parents. Today is my 32nd birthday. As I was sorting through my mail, I saw a letter with a return address from the county jail. It was Sam's handwriting. I opened it. Little brother, it began. I've had a lot of time to think in here. I know I made some mistakes. I was wrong about a lot of things. The guys in here are tough, not like the country club crowds I'm used to. I could really use some commissary money. Family helps family, right? $200 would make a big difference. I'll pay you back when I get out. No apology. No remorse. No acknowledgement of the lives he had ruined, including his own parents. After everything, after all the destruction, he was still the same. It was just another demand. Another expectation that I would clean up his mess. I stood in my kitchen and slowly, deliberately, tore the letter into tiny, tiny pieces. I let them fall from my hand like confetti into the trash can. Then I poured myself a glass of sparkling water, walked out onto my balcony, and looked at the city lights twinkling below. And for the first time in a very long time, I smiled. It wasn't a smile of revenge. It was a smile of freedom. Thank you all for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to share, but I felt like I had to. For anyone out there who has ever been made to feel small, or less than, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone who is just starting to find their own strength? Let me know in the comments below. And if my story resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more content. It really does help.